Chapter 17. The sun was sinking fast, and there wasn't much that Decker could do in the fading light other than secure the area, which was done with the tent. Theoretically, it would block animal activity, but since the area still contained bits of blood and remains, the canvas wasn't going to dissuade hungry, feral creatures from tearing down the structure. Decker made his way back to civilization with its heat, electricity, and phone reception. Katrina Belfort's backyard was lit up with police spotlights. The temperature was dropping rapidly, and although Decker had packed hand and feet warmers, there was still numbness and pain in his fingers, toes, and nose. Because of last year's murders, the police department had secured official crime scene tape, which had been placed across the front and back doors of Katrina's house and around the perimeter of the yard. Detectives, police officers Karen and Kevin, known as K and K, were chatting under the backyard porch, comparing notes when Decker walked into their conversation. Karen, the newest addition to Greenbrier, was in her 50s, a transplant from Chicago PD. Like Decker, she wasn't quite ready to retire, and Six McAdams officially had left for law school. There was no room for one more. She was tall with a weathered face, holding blue eyes, sharp cheekbones, and a beak for a nose. Her avian features were more eagle than sparrow. Kevin Nick Weed was large and big and had been with Greenbrier much longer than Decker. At one time long ago, he had been an experienced detective in Milwaukee, but since his homicide skills were a bit rusty, he was happy to let Decker take the lead. Kevin said, "The most interesting thing I picked up from neighbours is that Katrina often had people coming in and out of her house." Karen concurred, especially on the weekends. "Lots of parties?" Decker asked. "No one talked about loud noise, just that she had visitors. Young, old, mostly students," Kevin said. "The same students by the description, probably 2 or 3 male and 1 female. The girl described as average height, very thin, with short blonde hair." "Malin Euler," Decker said. "What about the boys?" "One was Indian, the other 2 were non-described white boy males, average height and weight. Their dress was the usual student stuff, jeans, sweatshirt, boots, and a backpack. One of the white kids was usually on a bike. Damodar Batra was probably the Indian. He's one of Belfort's students. So was a guy named Ari Wiesberg. Elijah wasn't officially her student, and she wasn't on his committee anymore, but he still could have visited her. "I'll get pictures for you to get a definite ID with the neighbours," Karen said. "I also got reports of an occasional visit from a 30-ish blonde boy who was good-looking." "Ditto," Kevin said. "One of the neighbours who told me that also remembers a car occasionally parked in front of her house late at night." "Oh?" Decker perked up. "What kind of a car?" "A sedan." She couldn't get more specific than that. "I tried. I even showed her pictures of cars on my phone. She just kept shaking her head, but she knew it was late at night." Decker paused. "Any information about the occupant of the car?" "Never saw anyone, except once she saw someone leave. Around 2, it was dark and the person was bundled in a coat and scarf. She just assumed it was one of the kids." "Students wouldn't own cars," Decker said. "So maybe it was the blonde guy," Karen suggested. "She didn't see her face?" Decker asked. "Nope." "Well, it's really a shame." Decker clapped his gloves to get circulation in his fingers. "Okay, what about the night of her death? Any luck?" Karen said, "The people I talked to were fast asleep by 12 and didn't know anything about an incident until this afternoon when they saw all the official cars." Kevin said, "Mostly the same, except there was Belfort's next-door neighbour to the north. You'll need to talk to her. She had trouble sleeping last night and got up to read around 2 or 3 in the morning. She decided to make herself a cup of herbal tea, and she peeked out the back window. She saw something moving across her backyard. She couldn't make out anything specific because the back door light was off in Katrina's house, but she didn't think too much about it because she thought it was an animal, low to the ground and not walking upright like a human." "Low to the ground," Decker repeated. "Someone dragging a body through a snow drift would be bent over?" "Like I said, you should talk to her." Decker said, "So regular visitors were 3 or 4 or more students, a blonde guy, and a mysterious occupant of a sedan. What about females close to her age?" Karen shrugged. "Nope." Karen said, "Same here." "Okay," Decker said. "Good work. Go to the station house, get warm, and write it all up on the official forms. Name, address, telephone number, and statement." No problem, Pete," Kevin said. "Do you need it tonight?" "Yes, I do. Just leave your report on my desk." "What are you going to do?" Karen asked. "I'm going to go inside the house, warm up, and hunt around for signs of a crime." Kevin looked around. "Where's Robin, Batman?" and Needloff poking around. "I thought he was in law school," Karen said. "He is, but you know how it is. People who break the law are a hell of a lot more interesting than guys who uphold it. When attempting to interview students, McAdams realized quickly that they didn't stick around in any one place for too long. Darmador Buttrell commuted to 3 locations at the time of Belfast's demise: his dorm room, the library, and a party in Goddard Hall and OU. He went out to get a pizza at around 11 because all the party food was gone and he was hungry. He had probably been noticed by a zillion people, and all of them probably couldn't remember where or when they saw him. Mellon was a little easier to pin down because she claimed she was in one space, the library, and there were people who did remember seeing her there, but they didn't remember exactly what time or for how long. That kind of precision when the person remembers it was exactly true because the church clock rang out usually exists only in fiction. Katrina's final student was Ari Weisberg. He was on a bus coming back from Boston last night after visiting friends at MIT. He claimed he arrived at his room around midnight, studied little, and then went to sleep around 1. He did say hi to a few people, but he doesn't remember exact time. The only thing McAdams could confirm was that the kid arrived at the Hamilton bus station at 11:30. It took at least 30 minutes to get back. Beyond that, the tray faded to black. As far as faculty, McAdams had placed 2 calls to Dean Zhao and had yet to call back. Her whereabouts went to the top of his list. He did manage to catch Aldo Farraga in the flesh. The man was in a rush and appeared distracted. He had a lot of 5 minutes for an interview before heading to a faculty meeting, which was going to deal with Katrina's horrible accident in the woods. Why do you say it's an accident? The man combed his curly hair with stubby fingers. Who would want to murder her? She sounded peeved. She was a hard-working woman, and this is a very small and safe town. The whole thing is crazy. Did you know her well? I knew her. She was a colleague. She was nicer than most. Ambitious, of course, but if you want to get tenure, you have to be ambitious. Have you ever seen her outside the school? My wife and I had her over for dinner. She had us over for dinner, that kind of thing. Often. No, not often, a few times. Did you know what her research was about? Of course, Fourier transforms, like Melon Euler, which is precisely why Rosa thought that she and Katrina would be a good match. Now, if you'll excuse me, you told us that Elijah Wolf was working on a Fourier transform. I had heard that his primary interest was fractals. Ah, yes, in the beginning, but he switched to Fourier transform, and mid-junior year, he began showing a keen interest in applied math. I told you, and the older detective all this morning. That was about Elijah Wolf. This is about the untimely death of Katrina Belfort. We're talking again to everyone who knew her, so you have to endure a little repetition. Farrago was silent. McAdams said, if Eli's interests were changing, maybe he was secretly meeting Katrina Belfort to talk about Fourier's transform. I wouldn't know, but I wouldn't be surprised. Katrina often invited students over to her house just to talk. A long pause, and she didn't speak very fondly of Eli. How fondly? I suppose it doesn't make any difference now. A sigh. Katrina wanted to be his primary thesis advisor. I know she wanted him to switch from Rosa because Eli seemed to be gravitating in her direction. How's that meeting going? What do you think? There was a shouting match. Rosa was furious. He almost had Katrina fired, which he could do because she was on probation. A few of the faculties intervened, including Dean Zhao and me, suggesting a student change. Primary advisor is not a reason for dismissal. When cooler heads prevailed, the matter was dropped, and no one spoke of it any further. But you think he was still seeing Belfort on the sly? It's possible. This morning you told me that Eli had turned to Linus Talbot, working with him in the sly. I said I thought it was possible the man was on Eli's thesis committee. Farrago checked his watch. I must go now. One more question, sir. Where were you last night between 10 and 4 in the morning? Me? We're taking statements from everyone, Professor. It's nothing personal. I certainly hope it's not personal. He cleared his throat. I was home with my wife. She can vouch for me. I went to bed later than she did, but I never left the house. Same alibi as Rosa, McAdams said. Could I take a look at your phone and laptop? You might be able to alibi you if you use either one of the electrics at home. I don't need an alibi because I didn't do anything, and I didn't make or receive any calls last night. I don't even think I use my computer. Most of my computations are done by hand. He stopped talking and regarded McAdams' eye. I need to lock up. I'm already late for my appointment. Of course, McAdams said. Thank you for your time. Farrago escorted him out. That next time make an appointment, then I won't be so rushed. I would have done that, but there are extraordinary times, don't you think? Farrago didn't answer. He locked the door, picked up his briefcase, and walked away without so much as a goodbye. Rosa that her student came to her house. Decker said that syncs with what the neighbours told us. He also said that Belfort liked her admirers. I think Rosa was trying to paint her as a flirt, maybe even more. What do you think? Decker and McAdams were standing in Katrina Belfort's living room. Decker had been going through her most recent calls on her cell phone, while the kid was strolling through her computer. I don't honestly know. He clearly didn't like her. Good job with the interview and alibis, by the way. I do my best. McAdams was trying to break into her email with little success. Her computer was one wall after another. Security, even her word processing file needs a password. Do you think she was having an affair with one or more of her students? Wouldn't be the first time, Decker said, although I'm curious why Rosa was leading you in that direction. Maybe he was hiding his own affair behind the accusations. I thought about that, McAdams said. Maybe the love loss bit was a ruse, or maybe he was jealous of the others. Katrina was a good-looking woman, or maybe she was carrying on with more than one person, or she could be legitimately helping her students. She hadn't lived in Greenberg for very long, no signs of a busy social life. Maybe her work was her life. I can tell you this much, she had roughly the same phone calls over and over. Malin, Damador, Ari, Elijah Wolf when he was alive. Then you have Rasa, Zhao, and Faraga. There are lots of calls to someone named Ryan. Decker looked around the room. Then he held up the photograph of Cranjon, a young man to Skyware. Our missing link? Maybe. Give a call. Decker stared at the picture. He looks younger than she is. He continued to stare at the picture. Of course, he slapped the photo. They look alike. The eyes, the lips, the identical smile. McAdams stopped what he was doing and looked at the picture. Right, brother and sister. Decker didn't answer right away. Then he said, look at Katrina's face for a moment, Harvard. Tell me what you see. When McDonald's picked up the slam shot, Decker said, no, put that down and look at the ski snapshot. Who does she look like besides the guy standing next to her in the picture? McDonald started a picture. Are you thinking Madeline Euler? Same long face, roughly the same height. Belfort's build is bigger, but under a hoodie you couldn't tell that. If she was covering all that long hair, I think she would easily pass for Madeline. If it was Katrina who broke into Madeline's room, what could she be looking for? Maybe she thought that Madeline might have a copy of Eli's paper, or maybe she was trying to spook Madeline. But why? I don't know. I'm just shouting out suggestions. Decker held up the phone to see what Ryan has to say. If anything, the line was connected, and after 4 rings, it went to his voicemail. You've reached Ryan. You know what to do. Beep. This is Detective Peter Decker of the Greenberry Police Department. Please call me back as soon as you get this message. He recited his cell number and hung up the phone. He pointed to the computer. Did you find anything worthwhile in the hunk of metal? Not yet. I'll probably have more success if I took it with me and studied in your house. We shouldn't take it home. It's evidence. One night. We'll do with that later. Right now, let's have a look around. Make sure we haven't overlooked a crime scene. You don't think she was killed in the woods? She might have been poisoned there and dragged into the woods. If that was so, the house would be the primary crime scene. How about if you rummage through the kitchen and bathroom cupboards and cabinets and see what kind of pills and poisons are lurking about? I'll check out the living room and bedroom, go through the drawers, and look for signs of a struggle. Everything looks pretty darn neat, Deck. That's why I said I'll look for signs of a struggle, Harvard. I'm searching for all the tiny cracks. Eventually I'll find a leak. With crime, there's no such thing as a watertight.